Well, Megan West represents My Faith Votes. It's a group who's calling upon citizens to do three very simple things: pray, think, vote. She visited with me in Nashville the other day to ask about the essential issues that I believe are going to inform this election and help decide how people would vote.
At My Faith Votes, we just want to ask you some questions. We're days away from the election, and we want to give our people some insights as far as your wisdom, and we just want to ask you, where is America headed right now? Are we in a good direction? Have we made a shift? Is it positive?
I'm a little worried about things. I was talking to a very good friend of mine who was a missionary to Venezuela about 30 years ago, and he was there for a number of years. And as you know, Venezuela was once a very prosperous, significant, solid, stable country that exported oil and beef and was a very good economy. Now it is in utter collapse, and people stand in long lines for the basic necessities of life. And despite their natural resources, the advent of socialism and corrupt government has destroyed Venezuela. He made a comment to me that really startled me. He said, what I'm seeing in the U.S. among younger generation students and the academics is what I saw in Venezuela prior to it beginning to go downhill. And that really shook me, and I thought, you know, we've got to see some different direction in this country, or we could go down that path within another generation.
There's issues within the church even where there's such division, and immigration is one of those.
Sure.
People have different philosophies as far as how we should approach that. So where is the line between immigration being compassionate and immigration being an invasion?
Immigration is an important factor in how this country was made strong and wonderful. People who came to America because America represented freedom. It represented their ability to be an individual, not a part of a group. And they were not part of limiting themselves because of their race or because of their ethnicity or their religion or because of what their family owned or didn't own. That's what made America an incredible place, and it's why people came. But when they came to assimilate into America. They embraced our Constitution. They embraced our language. They wanted to be a part of America. And they raised their kids to serve the country, to respect the country. That's a very different kind of understanding of immigration than it is when if somebody comes and says, whether you want me or not, no matter what I've done, you have no right to keep me out. I'll come if I want to, and I'll burn your flag, and I'll never learn your language, and I will get from you free things, and you will give it to me, and if you don't, then I will just denigrate you across the world. That is not immigration. That is an invasion. So should we be compassionate toward people who really are seeking asylum? Of course we should. But I see a lot of 18 to 35-year-old angry young men, and they're not looking for asylum. They're looking for an opportunity to exploit. So when people say, but as a Christian, don't you think you should just be compassionate? I am compassionate, but I'm also protective of my family, my neighbors, the people I go to church with, the people that I have a responsibility for. So here's my question when people ask that. Do you lock your doors at night? Do you keep your windows closed? If somebody's wandering around the neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the morning, do you go and open the door and say, why don't you just spend the rest of the night here? I never saw you before. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're armed. I don't know if you're on drugs. But yeah, just live here for the next several years. I don't know of anybody that does that. And if they do, then God bless them. But when I see people who say, you know, we shouldn't close the door, fine. How many would you like to put up at your home? And tell us for how long, for how many years can they come and stay at your expense? When you do that, then okay, you got me on that one.
Right. Well, you see the media from a different perspective, so there's lots of negativity, lots of bias. Give us some good news from the media that we don't hear, things that would inspire us to go, no, things are okay with what's going on in our country and moving forward.
Well, the negative is if people get all of their news and information from sources that they haven't edited and filtered, then they're going to really end up, I think, having maybe an unfair worldview. The good news is the same internet that can put out some nasty stuff is also a treasure trove of giving you the opportunity to mine for your own data and to look at things from 4 or 5 perspectives and to try to find out what are the facts, what is the truth. I always say when I'm speaking to high school students, don't read a newspaper or listen to a television newscast without saying, I have to be my own editor. So ask, what's the source of this information? How many people verified it independently? The veracity of it. What is it about this information that is trustworthy? Is it because somebody said this happened? Can somebody tell me who said? If it's all anonymous sources or an inside close to the president said, that doesn't mean anything. I would discount it and dismiss it. So make sure somebody is willing to go on the record to give you the information and that it's verifiable.
That's great. So you've been a pastor, you've been a governor, you ran for president, so you have seen the mix of faith in politics. And there are some Christians that say, well, that's just dirty, so I can't share my faith in a dirty arena. How do you talk to them as well?
I wonder, do they ever do their laundry? Is it dirty when they do it? Of course it is, but they do it because they clean it up. Do they ever clean their homes? Yes, they do. They vacuum, they sweep, they mop. Why? Because their house was dirty. If they said, oh, that's dirty, I don't want to touch it, it doesn't get cleaner, it gets even more dirty. So when people say politics is dirty, my response is then go clean it up. And if you don't clean it up, who's going to?
Exactly.
And it's only as clean as we're willing to make it. Is it a tough environment? I would say, you bet it is. And Meg and I always say to people when they tell me, I'm thinking about running for office, I say, well, if you can't stand the sight of your own blood, don't do it, because it is brutal. But if we only did the things that were safe and comfortable, who would ever sign up to go to the military? No one. That's really a tough assignment. Who would ever be a police officer, a firefighter, a first responder? Who would ever serve in the Coast Guard, for heaven's sakes? Nobody. So we can't make that as an excuse. In fact, I think, if anything, Christian believers should be at the forefront of helping shape the culture.
So what do you see as maybe the top issues that voters need to be concerned about as they're going to the polls?
You know, in My Faith Votes, we sort of have a threefold thing. We say pray, think, vote.
I'm wearing that today here.
There you go. I could have read it right off your shirt. But it is important, first of all, to pray, to be in touch with God. This should not be just a political decision. We really think people ought to be making spiritual decisions, biblical decisions about their citizenship. This is not about Democrats and Republicans. This is not all horizontal, left, right, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican. I like to think of politics as it should be, as vertical. It's up or down. It's good or bad. It takes us more toward God or further from Him. And that's why we pray. We pray to ask God which candidate, which direction, which policy will take us up, not down. So just because as we pray vertically, we should vote vertically. So if we pray, if we think, which means we get information, we understand what the issues are, not what someone tells us they are, but then all of that means nothing if we don't vote. And by the way, full disclosure, I'm honorary chair of My Faith Votes and very happy to be involved. You can learn more about My Faith Votes and the three-point process to pray, think, and vote at myfaithvotes.org.